Previously on Two Mediocre White Dudes on Film, we talked about Doctor Who and things that are going to be more interesting than Friday the 13th, Part 8.
Jason takes a cruise.
Jason takes a cruise.
Oh, is this the first time using our new music? I can't remember. I know we had a little bit of a break in between. I think this might be our first episode with the new music.
It might be. It might be. And that was not because we wanted to, but I actually like this one better. But
Yes.
we got copyright stricken or something.
Yeah, we started getting copyright strikes. We hadn't gotten it for a while, and I was using it, and I was. It wasn't the thing that they technically own the rights, and we're supposed to be able to use it and everything else. I don't know. Either way, I was like, you know what? I don't want to deal with it. Let me change it. I found this and bought the track for the royalty-free thing, and I actually really enjoyed it. So this actually works better for us anyway. So everything works out for a reason, I find. This definitely is one of them. We're here. We're back. We are back doing horror instead of the big blue box. If we've been doing a couple of weeks in a row now, we did get through our Doctor.
I wish we were talking about Doctor Who instead.
I do. I get that, especially from this episode. It's not like we don't love Friday the 13th. We love Friday the 13th. We have just hit a lull in the goodness of Friday the 13th the next 2 weeks, because we're going to be back next week as well. We're going to have 2 weeks in a row. Yeah, this is not a good time for Friday the 13th, the series at this point. And for Paramount, the ending of Paramount does not go out with a bang, goes out with a whimper. But we have to do our solemn duty
Let's
to
not talk about it
it.
then. Let's talk about literally anything else, like Doctor Who.
I think I think our listeners have had enough of us talking about Doctor Who. We have 3 whole episodes of Big Blue Box you can go listen to for Doctor Who.
Oh, you know what then? I have something we could talk about real quick.
Oh yeah,
that is much more palatable than this. We both got to see a movie over the weekend.
Yes.
That we were both big fans of, because you know what else we like on this podcast besides Doctor Who, besides scary movies? We like monster movies.
Yes,
we like movies where big fucking lizards destroy things. And that movie was Godzilla Minus One.
What a film this was. I mentioned before, my bio brother is a huge obsessed fan of Godzilla. I have never seen many of the original Godzilla movies. Like, I can't remember sitting down. I watched the original way back when. I obviously still haven't seen all the legendary ones, recent ones. Some of the cheesier ones I still haven't gone back to really watch. I mean, they're probably on the background. I watched them. I never sat down with them. But this is the Toho ones I went to with my brother Brian. And I was so impressed. I put it on my top. I think I put it top 3 of the year for me. That's how well I was in love with it. What a turn of events! Like what a. I guess the main thing I say is what a human story.
Yeah,
what a human
dude. This
story.
is a great goddamn. I mean, look, people forget, like, for all intents and purposes, the original Godzilla is an entirely different film than what the franchise has become known for, of the big battles and the monsters. Like, it was a very human story that, was telling its own version of the fallout of what happened with the atomic bomb. And it was like a very specific story. And, over the years, they've gotten away from that. Then they kind of come back to it with like Shin Godzilla and certain things. So every once in a while, they'll throw, like not a Hail Mary pass, but they'll kind of throw a curveball, and the series will kind of get back on track for half a second with these like much more human films. And Minus One ends up being arguably one of the best films in this franchise because of that. And more so, it's not just a great Godzilla movie, it's a great film. It's a great war movie. It's a great movie about like grief and loss and the human spirit. Like, it's wild how good this movie is.
Yeah, I mean, and not only that, it looks gorgeous. This is a reported budget of $15 million, and this looks like better than half movies that are made for $500 million.
The director said he had less than that.
I was going to say, I was actually going to bring that up. That the director, in an interview, somebody asked him specifically, how about the $15 million? And he said, I wish I had $15 million. So I don't even know how much it was. But man, that's the scenes of destruction were phenomenal. Like, what a well spent 15, however, less than $15 million it was. It looked gorgeous. And I mean, the cinematography was beautiful. So the film looked good. It felt good. And actually, you know what? It really, the best thing it did, and I think that most monster movies are at its best when you don't show the monster all movie long. Like, It's the best thing. You wait, and then when it does appear, it has such a better impact on the screen. We don't see Godzilla
It
very much. He is, man, he's on screen and demand your attention.
yeah. It's the thing that I thought Gareth Edwards did really well with 2014 and people push back on a lot, but I always thought his version of Godzilla was more like a Jaws film where
Yeah,
you kinda saw him, but he was never there until the
right,
3rd act, right?
right,
And this movie felt like that. I mean,
right.
the obvious, very real Jaws ties are also not lost on me that with how much of the movie takes place on
In water,
water,
right?
but,
Absolutely.
you know, there is a real era of less is more with this because
Yeah,
it really lets the characters breathe, and
right.
that's really awesome, and to the credit of Yu Miyazaki, the guy who directed it, he's an animation director. This
Yep.
is his first live action movie, and it's funny because Lupin the Third, the First was one of the first, movies I saw when I moved down here, and it was because 'cause I've always liked the Lupin movies, and I did not realize until a couple of weeks ago that the same guy who directed that animated film had directed this. And I thought that Lupin the Third, the First was such a shot in the arm for the franchise and had found it like a new lease on life. And I was so excited. And then for him to do it here again, it's like this dude's got a Midas touch that I can't quite understand. And he wants to do a Star Wars movie.
I heard that. I'm all over that. I think he'd
Like,
be
give
great in
this
that.
man a Star Wars movie right now.
Absolutely. He do let him do whatever he wants as far as I'm concerned. He's proven himself for this. Um, What's amazing to me too, as a discussion with Brian, I love the fact that we can have two Godzillas on screen really at this point because we have
Mhm.
it. Like my brother posted the meme to me. It was the meme of Tiger Woods and John Daly looking at each other, or Tiger Woods looking all professional and John Daly looking all like cartoonish. I don't know if you've ever seen that one.
Yeah.
That's what it is because like we got the minus one being the very serious movie, the very like well crafted movie, but then you get like Godzilla and Kong later on, which is all about summer popcorn shoot up, blast them up, fight them up kind of
Yeah.
thing.
You know what, man? That trailer's freaking dope as shit. And I love everything
It is.
about it.
It is. And that's going to be nowhere near the human movie. The humans are going to be stupid in that movie. I'm going to guess that's what it's always been like in a way. Like it's never
Yeah.
been a big deal. But again, we can have both types of Godzilla movies on our big screen here in 2023, 2024. And that's awesome to me. So I love both sides of things like that.
I do too, because again, the big dumb blockbuster shoving popcorn in my mouth movies of the Godzilla franchise are some of my favorites too, because those are the ones again that a lot of us grew up on with the big rubber suits and the
Yeah.
monsters and the mayhem. And look, I'll always have a soft spot for Roland Emmerich's very failed American attempt, and I like the new MonsterVerse stuff because I think it has the best of both worlds. I think like the Gareth Edwards one is really quite human and really has something kinda going on underneath. It's not just a big dumb monster movie, but, like, King of the Monsters is the big budget version of
Yeah.
the big dumb monster movies. In the same way that Skull Island is the fun pulpy thing, and then Godzilla versus Kong was exactly what it needed to be. It was a mile-a-minute thrill ride that just never stopped.
It was Friday versus Jason, as far as which we're gonna get to soon enough in
Yeah.
this podcast. Yeah, so that we were both very happy to see that. I hope we get the. I'm glad to see that it stuck around for a second weekend. Hopefully, we can stick around for more. Hopefully, this will open the door for more uh, these types of movies from other overseas to get a foothold into America. Get to see them on our big screen. Either way, very fun, very good, very happy that we got to see this. Yeah, very much so.
I really hope that they also end up getting a sequel to this one in some capacity because we didn't get a sequel to Shin Godzilla.
Right.
That was kind of a bummer because I really
Yeah.
loved Shin Godzilla, but I'm glad it lives on as its own like special piece of the Godzilla continuity and stuff like that.
My
Um,
brother, who, like I said, is so like he's very knowledgeable in and out. He says he's not sure because that seems to be what the company does. It'll do Shin Godzilla. It'll sit on it, not to like seem like they're cashing in on it, so they'll wait long, and then sometimes they'll just wait too long, and then they'll have to do something else with it. They feel like that's what happened with
yeah,
minus one. Like they waited for it long. Like, well, you can't do a sequel to it now. We're gonna have to try something else. So I got a feeling that that might happen again, which is unfortunate. Definitely it's a different mindset over there. Like we're like in our studio system, we can't get sequels out fast enough. In fact, look at Friday the 13th Part 8. Look at that segue back a little bit. Um, in their culture, they decide not to make these things for quite a while and try to make really make it an event film when it does come out. Something we said
Yeah.
about both, to be honest with you. And I'd err more towards waiting and taking their time than rushing it out. But you have to be able to get it out at some point, or else you lose your foothold. So
Oh yeah, absolutely. There's no denying that. But I was really impressed with that, and I gotta say, like, I'm really happy to see this and the new Miyazaki film doing so well at the
yeah,
box office here in America. It's the box office has been quite tumultuous. Obviously, this year there's going to be a lot of talk for a long time about what happened this year.
yeah,
With a lot of the bigger spectacle blockbusters and things of that nature, because the audience is just not
weren't
there
there,
really unless it feels like an event.
right?
Barbenheimer was the exception to things, not the rule. And
Correct.
so the fact that these two films are doing so well at the box office is quite exciting, actually.
Yeah,
And
I
especially
agree.
because they're foreign films.
Yeah.
And I love that.
We had Barbenheimer. We had a few of the animated films, like family type films. Like Spider Verse did well, obviously. And what else? Super Mario Brothers obviously did phenomenal. That kind of thing. So that's the kind of thing that does work. It seems like some of the things are working, but you're right. For most part, like things like Mission Impossible, shit the bed.
I
Indiana
mean, look,
Jones,
even Indy
unfortunately,
5, yeah,
shit the bed
exactly, which
comparatively.
we both loved.
Yeah, absolutely loved it. It's a weird place where we're into. I think you either have to have some kind of family tie or you have to have some kind of event that you can sell on. I'm interested. I would be interested to know, and if we ever go into a what if world, an alternate universe, would Barbie or Oppenheimer have been as successful without the other film? Like without that kind
No,
of like
I mean,
building each other
Barbie
up.
arguably probably still would have been, and I'm sure Oppenheimer would have done fine, but I do really think that the meme of it all,
Yeah,
ultimately saved, not saved, but pushed those
bolstered.
movies higher than they would have.
I mean, they even like thought, and then not even like the funny thing, it wasn't just the fans; it was an organic thing with fans. But then, like the people involved, like helped push it, like Greta Gerwig buying Oppenheimer tickets, and Chris Nolan never going to see Barbie. Like that became this like kind of fun zeitgeist moment for everybody.
Yeah. A zeitgeist moment that I actually honestly didn't live through because I only saw Barbie. I never
Yeah,
saw Oppenheimer in the end. I still haven't seen it.
I know that's sad for me. That's sad for me. It's probably
I
one of his
I
best.
I'm sure
It's
it
one of his
is, and
best.
I will eventually get to it. My friend Kyle keeps telling me the same thing. He's like, "You need to watch it. It's his best movie." He goes, "Now, look, I'm a Nolan mark and all of that, but it's, like, really his best movie." I just can't bring myself to care. I don't know what it is. I just can't.
You're
But
not a
it's
Nolan guy. You've never been a
interesting.
Nolan guy.
No, I really haven't, and that's okay. Like, we all like what we like, but it's interesting because, I mean, I'm a Scorsese guy, and I still haven't even seen, his new one
Killer
either,
Moon.
Killers of the
Yeah,
Flower Moon.
I haven't either, and I like Scorsese too. That's another one from. That's one that
But
I've
it's
missed for
3.5,
me.
again, you're asking me to make 3.5 hours of my time,
Yeah,
and
that's fine.
that's a lot of thing, you know what I'm saying? Especially you go to the theater with trailers and things. Now you're asking me to take 4 hours out of my day.
Pretty much, pretty much. I will stream that one eventually because I am a Scorsese fan. Although, quite frankly, I think I did that same thing with The Irishman. It took me a while to watch The Irishman as well. I
Oh,
eventually
I
did.
saw it opening day in theaters.
Yeah, I didn't. I didn't. I did the same type of thing. I let it go for a while. Eventually did and really liked The Irishman. I liked it probably more than most people, a lot of people
I
did.
adore that movie.
But again, the same thing here. I'm not pushing to see it anytime soon, but we'll have to find out. I mean, my son wanted me to see. My son really wants to see Oppenheimer also, so that's another reason that we made it easier for me to go to. He was all on board him seeing it, and my
Right.
brother too. So that definitely made things easier. Yeah, it's interesting. It's definitely an interesting time in the theaters. I'm interested to see what next year is going to be like. I feel like a lot of the geek stuff is going to come out 25, 26, where they start seeing a return of the geek led
Yeah,
IP type stuff, like the big stuff we're looking forward to.
well, because Deadpool 3 is the only Marvel film next year,
Hmm.
which I think is probably better for Marvel now with what happened with the Marvels.
Yep, I
And there's
agree.
a whole conversation about that to be had that I don't think that people realize just how online toxic behaviors ended up being a real detriment to that film.
Yeah,
Because I think over the last 2.5, 3 years of this movie's life, before it even hit screens, people had basically killed it before it was even released, and that was,
Right.
we've talked about that on here before, and it's a bummer and it sucks. And so Marvel's smart to try to pivot and get away from it, and they're probably smart at Warner Brothers too in some capacity. I don't want to give them too much credit because fuck David Zaslav, but there is a something to be said about no DC movies next year too, to let Gunn's new,
Yeah.
universe cook a little bit longer and put it out
Yeah,
there.
the
Even though
universe should just be ready.
I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm already over the new Superman movie, and it's not even out yet.
Really?
It's starting to Yeah, it's starting to feel a little too BVS for me with all the announcements. There seems to be a lot going on with it, and I trust Gunn, but there's just so many characters already and so much it seems like going on, and I want to be wrong, I really do, but I'm just getting flashbacks of this is how we ended up here to begin with.
I mean, I kind of understand it, but I haven't really seen that much yet. Because all we've had announced so far, we have a Superman, we have a Lois, we have a Lex Luthor.
Green Lantern, Maxwell Lord, Lex
Maxwell
Luthor,
Lord is a part of the world is fine. I think. I think Green. I think they're trying
but
to
that's what
establish that this is a
all
world to have all the heroes in it already, instead of being
then what
like
was it, like, they announced 4 of the characters from that, like, rogue group that they're making a movie about to
Authority.
the Authority. Like, there is so much in it already, and it just feels like there's gonna be again, this is an on the outside thing, and it may
Yeah,
not be fair, and I could be 100% wrong because I do like James Gunn, but it does feel very putting the cart before the horse, and that's what got us here.
I guess.
That was
I
what
mean,
Snyder did with BVS.
I will argue that I think if you look from the outside of Guardians of the Galaxy, the same type of thing. There was a lot of different characters that were announced
But
in there.
Guardians is specifically a team. That's the difference. Superman is not. And I just want a Superman movie.
Hmm.
Like, just a Superman film. A basic Superman film with him fighting Brainiac or something like that. Like, that's all it needed to be. Now, granted, again, it's James Gunn. He did great with the Guardians movies. So, and like, I love Slither. I like Super. I like all of the stuff he does. I just have this thing in the back of my head that is going, this feels very familiar. It feels very much like what got us here the first time, and I don't want that to happen again. You know
Okay.
what I'm saying? Especially under David Zaslav's reign. Because what if the new Superman movie comes out and it's a decent enough movie like Man of Steel is, but it underperforms still at the box office? And then we end up right where we started again.
Hmm. I mean, I guess your fears aren't not valid. I'm not going to validate your fears. I just think I think you're. I get why you are. I don't necessarily agree with you yet. As far as I think James Gunn has enough of a vision to keep that from happening. And he's been right many times before. So it's kind of more like until I'm going to trust you until you fuck up, and I haven't seen him fuck up enough yet for me. So
I
I'm
don't,
all on board.
yeah, I don't disagree with you.
So I get that. I will. There is one DC movie coming out next year. We do have, even though it's not really DC related, it's the Joker sequel, which I'm very to see how that
Yeah,
does.
I don't really
I'm
count
very.
that because it's not.
I get that, but it is still a DC film. It is still,
I
especially with what
should
they're
say
doing.
like a DC. Uh, so we're
Movie,
getting a highbrow DC project that is
right?
not like a comic book movie. Like, it
Right.
is, but it's not. Um, it's not a shared universe film.
Right. That's fair. Absolutely.
But
So.
I'm curious about it too. I just, I have my feelings about the first one.
Yeah,
So
and many people do. It was a very polarizing film. I actually did enjoy the first film. I just don't. I honestly don't think there's any need for a sequel. Like it was such a unique kind of standalone movie, and I liked what it did. But like at this point, isn't it just like a Batman movie now? Shouldn't it just be a Batman movie now? Like Joker's established now. Like so, what's the next? The next thing would be a Batman mix. So
I'm sure that everything you just said was really brilliant. The funny thing is I heard none of it. My speakers like died out on me while we were recording, so I had to change batteries and do some things. But I'm sure that
typical
your love for
PJ.
the Joker is brilliant and wonderful, and you are such a man of taste and culture that I'm sure it was just fantastic.
Typical PJ point in the argument. No, it's completely fine. I get it. I understand it. I'm agreeing with you to a point because I don't see any reason for there to be a sequel. Because quite frankly, anything after that, anything after the establishment of Joker becomes a Batman film to me. Like he's established now, so what is there left to tell in his story that doesn't involve Batman? So it just seems weird.
Yeah, it seems
People.
like they're definitely leaning on the Harley Quinn of it all because obviously the one thing I'm excited about in it is that Lady Gaga is playing her.
Yeah,
Um, but I'm kind of like, do we need to do this story? And is Todd Phillips the guy to do that story?
yeah.
Because to be honest with you, I'm not the biggest Todd Phillips fan. Um,
I'm also not sure Lady Gaga is the right choice. She's kind of hit or miss for me. She has a lot of talent, but I think the role it's role specific. I don't know if she. I don't know if her and Harley are a good match. To be completely honest, I don't know. I'm open to give it a shot, but
well, and it'll be a very specific version of Harley though,
right.
too, like
No.
so I am game to see what they do with it. I will give it the benefit of the doubt. I'm not sold that we need the movie.
No,
But
you
I
don't.
don't think that's also a fair argument because the argument is also that do we need any movie, et cetera, et cetera. So like that's
Yeah,
neither here nor there.
I've said that many times in my life. I've always hated the "did we didn't need it, we don't need it," and I just made that argument. I just made that we don't need it argument. But truth be told, I actually feel the same way. I don't think we need any movie. So if somebody has an idea, they want to just you want to go for it, and they want to be creative about it, then they should by all means give it a shot. Even if
Except
I can't
if
say it.
you're the human centipede, then go fuck yourself.
Every film has its place, I guess.
No,
Uh,
no, stop that. We will not give that one its place.
we're not going to do that. We're not going to do that franchise on Two Mediocre
No,
Issues.
fuck
No.
you.
Oh, okay, fair. Okay. Oh, good to know. Yeah, you
Um,
have your limits. Fair enough.
I
You'll
do have my
do
limits.
you'll do fucking Puppet Master, all 5,000 of them. But
Yes, I will because they're works of art, beautifully bad art.
that is one phrase that you could say.
Beautifully bad art. Yes, I agree. Although
I
I'll
think
grant
one of
you the
those. I
first
think
three are
one of those
actually very
words.
good.
I think one of those words is very good. It's very true. I'll let you decide which one. But one of those words you said is very true.
Beautiful and art. I agree with you.
Well, one of those words.
I was only throwing bad in for to throw the scent off that people don't realize how much you love those movies the way that I do.
All right, I'll come clean. I've only seen the first couple, and they're fine. They're fine. They're fine. But I never watched anything beyond that, so I can't even say they're bad because I don't know for sure. However, everything you've told me, well, I'm leaning in that direction. Let's put it that way.
That's just cruel. That's what that is. That's just cruel. Here you want me to watch the Nightmare on Elm Street movies for you on this podcast, but you won't grant me Puppet Master?
Nightmare on Elm Street is an iconic series, my friend. Iconic.
Yeah, and so are the Puppet Master movies for a lot of people.
Name anybody besides yourself. That's an iconic.
Tim Franco.
I don't know. Tim Franco probably does love them. He probably does.
Yes,
I'll give you
exactly.
that. I'll give you that. I'll give you that. We are going to cover Nightmare eventually. That's true. That'll be our next big thing next year.
Rachel
Probably.
Silverstream.
Really? That
No,
surprises me.
I made her watch all of them with me one time when
So
was
she
visiting.
watched them. That doesn't mean they're iconic for her. Okay, fair enough.
You stopped and said, "Really, though?"
I did for a second. I'm kind of like surprised. Like there can't be that can't be true.
There's
That
more to
can't be
that
true.
story.
Well, we'll wait till we do the Puppet Master on stream. Maybe I'll let you do one of them or something like that.
And here's the thing: it was so iconic that they did Puppet Master versus Demonic Toys as a Sci-Fi Channel movie starring Corey Feldman in the 2000s.
Yeah, that's a great big selling point right there.
Hey! You stop that right now. I don't like this tone that you're taking with me, sir. Also, I wanted to shout out the Disney Plus Harrison Ford Indiana Jones documentary that we both watched.
Oh yeah.
Dude, what a great film that is. Am I just trying to absolutely avoid talking about Jason Takes
You are
Manhattan? It feels
100%
like it.
trying to. 100% trying to. I understand what you're doing, and you hit something that I actually would talk about. I did love that documentary. Not a lot to say about it, only that I just sat back, felt like a comfy, warm blanket. I'm a big Harrison Ford fan, as you are, and just watching him with his love for Indy, it was just heartwarming. And I'm so glad it happened. I'm so glad Crystal Skull happened. I'm so glad Dial of Destiny happened. We're just a lucky fan base.
Well, I also
You know,
love that the documentary wasn't just about Indy in the end. It was
right?
really about celebrating Ford's entire career. It like very much wrapped around the Indy of it all. But
Yeah,
I
Indy was
loved
the key
how
point. But
Right, but I loved it embracing so much of his career and him talking about so many different things and seeing it and having so many different facets of what he was doing and seeing him, especially in the '80s, coming off of the Raiders and kinda getting to choose his filmmakers and
Right.
choose the movies he wanted to do, and listening to him talk about that, it was really awesome.
Yeah, I agree. I think if I had any nitpicks about the documentary, I'd almost like to have seen a little bit more of the non-indie stuff in a way. I'd be a little bit
Yeah, it could
more
have been another 20 minutes, and I would have been
right.
cool with it.
I think could have gone a little more 50-50 with indie and then the non-indie stuff. As it was mostly like 70-30, I want to say indie, which is it's fine 'cause I love indie
Yeah.
so much. But there's times like, oh, I'd love to have seen a little bit, just a touch more on Star Wars, just a touch more on Jack Ryan, just a touch more on some of the other opportunities he had, and maybe more about like shrinking towards the end and things like that, like his more current work, which we got a touch of,
It
we
was
got a split of, but let's see even more.
it was a little weird seeing footage of Air Force One in the middle of a Disney Plus documentary, I'm not gonna lie to
That's
you.
true. That's very true.
I was sitting there, I was all, "Well, this is happening right now,"
Yeah,
and I just kinda laughed. It was
yeah,
just really funny because it was like, "Huh, that's happening right now." There's literally Air Force One footage happening on a Disney Plus documentary.
yep,
But it made me happy.
yeah,
I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really cool, and I liked how candid, Ford
yeah,
continues to be about his
yeah.
entire career on top of it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Um, Speaking of that, one more thing I will talk. We do have to get to Friday the 13th. One other thing I
No, we
watched,
don't.
which I'm going to be covering on Holy Snooks tomorrow. I watched the Disturbance of the Force, which is the making of the holiday special, uh,
Oh, I
and that
haven't
was
watched that yet.
fascinating. It's a fascinating story. Like it led me to believe there's actually stuff out there involving Star Wars, which is actually worse than the holiday special. It actually made me. I actually watched the holiday special before I watched the documentary. I kind of put it on and kind of slogged through it. I'm not gonna lie. I kind of like did a little fast forward here and there to get through some of the stuff. Um, but it was really a kind of a great story. I love some of the clips they used from interviews and that somebody I forget it was like I think I want to say it was I just watched it yesterday, but I want to say it was Conan O'Brien who asked Harrison Ford about it. He's like, "So, is that going to be? Or was that made?" He did like Harrison Ford is like shuts it down. He's like, "I wanted to
Yeah.
talk about it." It's very fun though, and I learned a lot about it, and so I can't wait to talk about it tomorrow on Holy Snows with Maddie. But
So
yeah,
where is that
absolutely.
documentary?
I bought it on Prime. I bought it because I knew it was coming out for a
It's
while.
out there though, like, you can buy it and watch
You can
it?
buy it or rent it. Yeah, absolutely.
Cool, cool, cool.
It's
I
a lot
have
of cool stuff.
I'll have to check it out
Yeah.
because
Um,
I do have the holiday special, bootleg Blu-ray,
oh,
and it is one that I watch once a year,
yeah.
just to test my patience and will to live.
I
Um,
found I traveled the Jack Sparrow seas and found a cool version that a fan made of him, like remastered it, and it actually includes the commercials from the 70s
yeah,
that were there that day. And I love that. It adds so much to the texturing conversation that I'm so happy I found it.
it's fair. I
Uh,
can appreciate that.
what we can appreciate. Jason takes a cruise. Let's get into it. Rip the
Why are
band-aid
you
off.
doing this to me?
I'm doing this too because we have to do it. It's part of the
No, we
contract.
don't. We could
It's part of
just
the contract.
make this podcast about literally anything else.
It's
It says
on
that
the
it's about
thumbnail.
Chase Takes a Cruise.
It's on the thumbnail. We are.
I feel
Um,
bad. I do. I feel bad that I feel like I'm avoiding it because the truth of the matter is we both came into this one and we had talked about it in the past on here that we were both like, "Oh yeah, we like this movie. We like this one a lot more, I feel like, than a lot of people seem to." And so we were both like really ready to talk about it. We were really excited. And then I rewatched it and it was like my least favorite rewatch of this movie ever. And I started to see holes and things that just were not working for me. Like it's still big and dumb in the best way, in only the way a Friday the 13th movie can be, but it just also feels so tired at this point. And I think a lot of it stems from the behind the scenes, which is there's no Frank Mancuso Jr. The budget continues to get slashed because the original version of the story was like primarily set in New York. And the more that the studio was like, well, we can't afford that, they would just cut things down until almost the entire thing is set on a boat. And that's really frustrating for a movie called Jason Takes Manhattan.
yeah. Um, there were interesting ideas going back to the pre-production. I have to say, there is ideas initially that after part seven, that they were going to develop Jason Carl Buechler actually began developing this follow-up pitch, which is going to have Tina Shepard come back and she was going to
Mhm.
be maybe after being released from an insane asylum, and then actually Tina Shepard herself, Lar Park Lincoln had co-wrote an alternative screenplay, having Tina working as a psychologist for troubled girls, um, and then they even their co-star Kevin also wrote a screenplay, and it was just kind of
Yep.
like all sorts of ideas they had out there. Instead, they opted to assign it to Rob Hedden, who is making his debut on this film. He wrote and directed it, and I think he had a lot of energy. I think he had a lot of chutzpah. I think he had some good ideas
He
in
had
a
the
way.
moxie.
He had
He had the
concept,
moxie.
but he couldn't make it work out. And at the end of the day, we're going to break it down. But this, I mean, we have part 9 coming up next, Jason Goes to Hell, which has long been neither of our favorites either. It's just 2 weeks in a row. We're gonna have to grin and bear it as we get to the better parts of the franchise again. But I feel like at least next week's effort, Jason Goes to Hell, takes a lot of big swings, and it's at least interesting that way. This one just feels like it's giving up. That's like the most thing I can say about it. Everything's kind of
Well,
like tired. Everything's been
and I
done before, and they're like kind of like, okay, we want to do this, we want to do this, we can't do this. Okay, we'll half-ass it and do this.
and I think that you just nailed it though, right? Because part of why it feels so tired is that Paramount was not willing to spend the money to do
Right.
something different. Had the concept of it being set all in New York really been how they did it and really had put the money into it, I think you would have been seeing things in a different way. And I don't think at that point Paramount loses the rights. I don't think that things shift the way that they do. I think that that at that point also it would have arguably probably been maybe one of the more successful films in the franchise
Yeah.
had you just allowed it to be different and allowed, like, if they had put the money into it, it would have ended up being a different thing, I think. And I truly believe that they are completely to blame in a lot of ways.
Mm,
That's not to say that the director doesn't share some blame on it, because there's a lot of the movie that just doesn't feel interesting at times.
right.
But I do think that's also because he took two very different concepts and smushed them together because that was what he was forced to do.
Well, that I think that's probably. I mean, I will say I can't. I can understand Paramount's hesitation to a degree. Obviously, Friday the 13th had a lot of diminishing returns. New Blood was the least successful in the franchise, and it was always about making these movies on the cheap for to make a big bang out of their buck. So you go to Paramount and say, "Oh, we want to make spend more money on this film, on a film that's going to make maybe even less money than we made last time." That's like initially like a well, can we do it a different way? I don't think we need to do it quite like that. Unfortunately, they overcorrected it in a way that just I think kind of killed Head and Spirit. Because like you talk about some of his little concepts before, it's like, all right, let's just take him away from the overall concept. Let's take him away from Crystal Lake. Awesome, that's a cool idea. We haven't seen him outside of Crystal Lake forever in
Yep.
any real way. Can we go to Los Angeles? Oh, we go to New York. New York is a cool idea. So many things we could do. We can go through Macy's. We can go through Times Square. We can go into a Broadway play. We can go onto the Statue of Liberty. All these kind of iconic things where, like, if you're going to take a big swing, take the big screen. And that's what 9 got right. When they took a big swing, they committed 100% to their big swing. Now, granted, we'll get to 9, and I'll tell you why. We'll both tell you why some of those big swings were definitely swings and misses, but at least they were swings. When they take away all the big swing ideas that they had, it just kind of like got more and more tired. They were rushing to make the film, and it felt like more and more his spirit was broken, and they kind of just reverted back to every other Friday the 13th film, except for without really great kills, without great effects, without a lot of terror or horror. Like it felt like tropes that were being used again and again and again. And that's exactly the point they were trying to avoid. And
Well, and again, I argue that if Paramount had just given them a chance, and look, again, I know there's a lot of diminishing returns with these things. I know that you don't want to keep pouring money into a thing, but I think had they allowed it to be Jason Takes Manhattan, the title of the movie,
Mhm.
then you would have ended up with something different in the end.
Yeah.
For better or worse, maybe, depending on your mileage may vary sort of thing, but like
Yeah, I don't disagree.
All the brilliant moments in this movie where it starts to finally feel like something interesting could happen is in the 3rd act.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. Before
But I
that,
mean,
it's
like
nothing, pretty much.
right, and the biggest like, it's such a slap in the face that half of this movie set in Manhattan is shot in Vancouver. Like, it's the same thing with as much as I love Jackie Chan's Rumble in the Bronx, that movie is not shot in New York at all. Like,
No,
it's one of those, like, weird things,
it's
and
not.
no, I know, shocker. Or even Ghostbusters 2016 shot in Boston. Like,
Yeah.
what a weird choice of doubling New York with Boston.
Yeah.
If you're gonna do it, do it. And
Right.
that's kinda how this movie feels, is that you called it Jason Takes Manhattan, your trailer leans on it being set in New York, the music, all of it, your teaser poster, everything about this movie is, "Look at us, we're going to New York, it's happening, it's a thing," and then you cop out with it, and that
Right.
sucks.
Yeah, 100%. And the funny thing is, the budget for the film was the highest of the series still.
I
It was
know.
still the highest of the series. They just did if you're gonna go for it, go for it.
Go
I'm not sure
for
how
it.
much more it made it, but, like, at this point, because I think if anything else, you're like me. I mean, I don't know, you're not as old as I am, so I don't know where you this was for you when it came, because this is 1989, so
Mhm.
you were not around for this as far as this goes.
Not quite yet.
Right. So I was around when this came out in the theaters, and I gotta tell you, it got horrible buzz right away. I remember this. I remember I saw 7 in the theaters. I don't think I saw 8 in the theaters because all I heard was, "It's awful. Jason doesn't even go to Manhattan." And so the word of mouth was basically that was the word of mouth, is that Jason doesn't even go to Manhattan. It's false advertisement. It sucks. So I waited for video,
Yeah.
like a lot of people did, I
Well,
think.
and I think that's ultimately the bummer because honestly, if you change the title and like we joke about it, that's why we always call this Jason Takes a Cruise. But if you
Mhm.
had called it anything else and then it just happens to show up with in the 3rd act, like the reveal that it had been set in like the ending was in New York, I wonder if the reaction would be different. I
Yeah,
think the
that
movie would still feel tired, but I think your expectations are different at that point, and
I
then it's a
agree.
big surprise.
And that's big. That's a big thing because it's when it's the difference between expectations between what you're selling me. You're selling me Jason Takes Manhattan. You're selling me that Jason's in Manhattan the whole time or close enough the whole time.
Right,
When you if it's not that and you come forward with that, I go in with a different set of expectations. Like, okay, I can wait for it. I can wait for it to happen. Like, the ending is what I'm waiting for, but I'm still like along for the journey. Like when you don't do it that way, you're going the whole time. You're like, okay, when are we getting there? What is all this?
right.
Wow. Oh God, we're finally here, and then it's over. You're like, wait, what? What just happened? I missed it,
Mhm.
and it
Yeah,
ended up being badly received for that reason, and it ended up killing the franchise for a little bit.
yeah, and I think that that's kind of the key to so much of this, and it's such a bummer because I would love to see someone take the original version of this script and do it
Yeah.
now. Like, really do something with it where we actually do see the entire chase over the Brooklyn Bridge and all these, like, bigger set pieces that just didn't happen, because god, dude, imagine that, Jason stalking people on the Brooklyn Bridge, like, Jason in all of it. All of him being in the boroughs, they should have really had him in the Bronx at one point. Imagine
Mhm.
Jason in the Bronx, that would have been incredible.
Absolutely, absolutely. Um, I just wish. I mean, I don't have any hard. I'm obviously don't have any feelings toward Rob Hedden. I think he's a guy that was a little bit over it. It was in over his head, as far as putting himself on a big franchise that had 7 movies behind it, and he had great ideas, but he had to kowtow to Paramount. It just wasn't.
Yeah.
He wasn't a name that can really stand up for it and make it work. He basically was like, okay, okay, uh, and I don't blame him. He's not.
No,
He
no,
doesn't
no,
have the name
definitely
yet.
not.
He doesn't have the name. He can't. He can only do what he's told, pretty much at that point. But yeah, let's get into it. Let's get into the actual nitty gritty. One of the first things this is kind of his fault is what the hell was that beginning?
Yeah, it's so,
Like
I know that we always have to get the resurgence of Jason in some capacity, um,
even
but,
before that,
like,
we
at
haven't had a
least with
recap.
6 and 7.
It's like even before that, we had this like New York, like kind of teaser
Okay,
thing.
but I don't hate that, right?
Okay, I
Because
did, I did.
no, no, no,
I
here's
did.
why. I don't hate it in the capacity of if this movie is Jason Takes Manhattan, that is the proper opening because especially New York in the 80s, everyone talks about how it's all about just trying to survive in that city, right? And how that city is what it is. And it sets up this idea of course, Jason going there and like tearing up and wrecking shop makes a lot of sense in a city like this grimy, rundown version of New York that it was. And this there it starts in a way that it makes sense for the movie they aren't making, and that again is the
Aren't
problem.
making. Aren't making, that's a big key right there. Because quite frankly, I feel like it is the worst thing. Like it gives you New York in the very beginning and then takes it away from you for 45 minutes to an hour. Like it's so
Yeah,
like always reminds you, here's where it's supposed to happen. Nope. Nope, we had to go back. So I really didn't. I mean, if it was a different movie, maybe I'd feel differently about it. At least it was a different swing. We weren't doing the whole recap the way they had done it before and everything else. And there's not to see a recap the first, like, or any kind of real recap. But it didn't work for me. It just felt like it didn't feel like a Jason movie at all. To be honest, with you. It felt like any
yeah.
other like 1980s New York based movie. I'm like, yeah, I don't know. Either way, but we will move on then to yes, Jason's resurrection. I agree. He's resurrected the same way he's resurrected in six with lightning or electricity or whatever. But it felt like without the buildup, without the suspense, it meant so little. Like it's all like at least in Jason
You're
Lives, they
not
had no
wrong.
idea. They had the build up, they had the Frankenstein build up, the big music, the stake in the heart, the electricity coming down. This is just some wires that get torn up by the anchor and then happens to touch Jason. Oh, he's alive again. Tired.
Yeah. And
Tired.
that's the other thing is I think the beginning of this movie in general, once we're back at Crystal Lake, is just awful.
Yeah,
Like I really don't like it. I don't like the characters.
right.
Um I do think that
I like any of the
the
characters.
tease where he pretends to be Jason and he pretends to kill her is kind of funny, but they're also just trying to give Jason a mask again, and so, like, they go out of their way because in the last movie, his mask is destroyed, obviously, so
Right.
they do this whole thing of, well, if someone pretends to be him, then he'll wear the mask and Jason can have his mask back, and it's like,
It's so
"Really?"
obvious. It's so
Yeah,
obvious, which is what I wrote. That's actually what I wrote my notes too. I'm like, okay, so basically this whole scene is basically the excuse for him to get his mask. And I think you could actually make that work in another movie as long as you kind of like wink, wink, nudge, nudge, and let the audience know that, like you're joking with them in a way. But this like tries to make it like not even tries to make it a real thing, but just kind of almost like sweeps it under the rug. Like here it is, real quick. Let's just get this done with. And I'm not a not a fan of it at all to begin with. I said it's weak and it's just tired, just tired.
it is, and again, like, I think that the actors are trying very hard, I will grant you
Absolutely,
that,
absolutely.
because I actually don't think Amber Pawlik and Timothy Burr Merkovic are bad.
Hmm.
Or,
No,
Tiffany Paulson, I'm sorry, and Todd Caldecott. Those 2 at the very, very beginning.
okay,
Jim and
okay,
Susie, they're really trying. They are
yeah,
really, 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 really trying. I just wish there was more to it, and, like, they also have to do the exposition dump, right? Because
right.
there's the Jason drowned in the lake and all that, but then there's the weird footage of young Jason
Completely
that doesn't
fine,
make him.
almost.
Yeah, like, he looks totally normal, that's so weird to me. Like, that's such a weird choice because the whole point is he was never normal. That was
Never.
the whole reason that he gets drowned in the end.
Right. We saw Frog Boy
But
jump up in end of one. That's who he was.
yeah, and that's who he's been in every iteration since. Even Freddy versus Jason gets that right. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
absolutely. This has felt like it. Honestly, maybe this is the case. Saved money. Don't worry about the
It does
effects on the kid.
probably save money. You're probably not wrong. It doesn't change the fact that it's super frustrating.
I know. I 100% agree with you. I'm very frustrated by it. You shouldn't. If you're going to show Jason as a kid, show him being the Jason that we all know and love is whatever you want to say. love, no, love, or else don't show him at all, or show him from the
Yeah,
back or something. Like just show him. I don't know, but it doesn't work. And again, you said it best. Exposition dump. These characters we don't know about, don't care about. They're just going to tell the story, and like I so tired, so tired.
it is. And it's a bummer because then we cut. I do love that they're listening to the radio or whatever, and it's these kids from Camp Crystal Lake, the graduating class, are all headed to New York, and they're the ones who accidentally bring Jason to life. But also, why is this on the radio? It's such a weird choice.
I had I had the written down too. DJ just weird. Like I thought, all right, like what DJ is talking about this? It's a regular like high school taking.
Yeah,
I don't know any high school senior trip that gets put onto the radio as like just this guy. Like, what are we doing here? It's so fake. And this is like what it comes to. This is stuff I do blame Hedden for a little bit because it feels like Hedden is just like of the school of that doesn't have to be real. We have to get this out of the way. This is cool enough. Yeah, we'll let it go. It feels tired and like you're half-assing it. And you half-ass it. He ends up half-assing a lot of the story and a lot of the things, as we're going to find out soon. He's just half-ass things. That's what I can't really give him credit for, and why I'm sure he hasn't worked too much since then. And I'm glad to see he's never returned to the Fridays. So I got anything else. It's just tired. That's my whole thing. I keep saying. I think I've said it 500 times already. There's one episode so far, but it's going to keep coming back. It's just tired.
Hey, Paul, how do you really feel about this movie?
It's just tired.
It's
like me, just tired.
Yeah, I don't know, and I do like they really go out of their way to have a really dumb version of Jason's Return, and you're just like, really, this is how we do it, like. But in the spirit of the series, it's not awful. It's
Right.
just another version of the electricity from Six. It's another version of one of the characters accidentally bringing him back to life in the last one. Like they really just keep kind of doing the thing, but once again, it also just doesn't feel earned. But then you cut to all these people going on a boat, and it's like, hey, two of the kids didn't show up. And one of the teachers inexplicably is like, yeah, well, they're probably just having sex.
Right.
They're probably just exploring each other. And you're like, I'm sorry, what? And we just like brush over it, and they all get on a boat and that's it. That's fine.
Let's talk about these teachers. These whole teachers seem to have like kind of I don't want to say inappropriate relationships anyway, but like just weird relationships. We have the one our leading character there who is like okay, so her stepfather is like the teacher that's going on board, but his stepfather is the one who doesn't bring her. It's the other teacher that brings her.
Because Charles McCullough is a big piece of shit.
Right, he is, and honestly speaking, he's actually probably the best part about this episode, this installment, because yeah, he commits to what he's doing, and he becomes the shit weasel, the asshole that you wanna hate, and he does his job very well. But then it's the other teacher that's like, why don't we understand what she's doing? Like she's bringing like, it's technically it's his responsibility. He should be able to decide whether if he's the guardian, like it seems like he is, he's the one who gets to tell her whether he's a good guardian or not. That's totally irrelevant. Why does this other random teacher get to bring her and say, "Yep, she's going on board because I said so"? Who the fuck are you? Like, it just seems so weird.
It does seem so weird, and I'm just not big on a lot of the characters in this one.
There's no
In
one
the
I really
same way
like.
that I kind of felt about Seven also. Um, and I think that's my problem in general with Seven and Eight, and also Nine as we move forward. I just don't care about the characters. I don't. And the fact that we have a second movie in a row where it's like, and actually like the parent is the villain the entire time is such a like boring twist.
He is very Doctor. What's his name? Isn't he? I
Yeah,
didn't think about it that
he
way, but he
is.
is very Doctor. What's his name?
Because there's also the trauma of her past and all of this
Right.
stuff where it's like, well, actually, you tried to drown me. Well, no, but I saved you. But you tried to drown me. Like the whole thing just feels so forced. And
I
it's
do
such
feel
a
at
weird
least
choice.
I do because I did like him better than they said as he's probably one of my favorite characters of the installment. At least he does have I don't think the word is good intentions. He's fucked up with how he's doing things, but when he explains what he's trying to do, he does try to save them from Jason at the end. He actually feels like he's like a character that is a fucked up character who's trying to do the right thing, and if he's not coming close to doing the right thing. So that I appreciated, I think. But the
I
rest of
can
them,
see
I'm with
that.
you.
I just think that it's funny because I actually prefer a lot of the ideas of having older people as the like main focus of these movies. It's something we'll talk about when we get to the Never Hike Alone movies. I actually think pivoting away from just teenagers in these is always a good idea because I
Yeah.
think you can do more than just horny teenagers being killed by Jason. Even though that's the bread and butter of this franchise.
Yeah.
But at
No,
the
you're
same
right.
time, yeah, no, right. It's just I also wish that sometimes they'd try to make them likable
That would be
instead of,
fun.
you know what I mean?
I would. I will throw out there that I disagree with you about Seven. I mean, again, that's because Seven's one of my favorite ones. I did like. I actually liked a lot of Seven's characters. At least they were well defined, and I felt like they had characters you could like and characters you could hate, and characters that are at least
Sure.
fun to watch. This film, I feel like we don't get to know anybody ever. Even like our lead character, we barely know. I think the only one we get to know get any real sense of who they are is probably the prom queen bitchy one. And if that's your main person, we get to see who she is, then that's a problem. That's a big problem. Because I cared nothing for Jensen, for Rennie. I cared nothing for Scott Reeves as Sean or whatever. These people I could not give a shit about.
Well, and it's once again, it's so funny because they're clearly also trying to lean on the weird psychic nature of the last movie. So
Mm.
Rennie has all these like premonitions of Jason throughout, which is so odd and like not necessary.
No, not at all. And in fact, it just makes it seem like a cheap knockoff. Like if you wanted Tina back, bring Tina back. Like
Right.
this is like you don't need a half-assed Tina who just sees premonitions now. Like, no, this is not what this movie is about anymore. That your last episode or last sequel was that installment. That was your hook. You're trying to have a new hook of going to Manhattan. You're adding a different thing with another X-Men character, and you don't need it. It takes away from it.
It really
And,
does. And I think that's kind of the point of this conversation in this movie because again, not to be super negative because we're not trying to be. There is stuff I
no.
like in this movie.
Yeah,
One again, I think the whole third act for the most part is actually very fun.
I
Once
would
it
fully
gets
agree
to
with you.
Manhattan,
I would agree with you that until the last 5 minutes of it, the last act is very fun and very awesome.
yes, 100% because I do think the ending is also just wildly strange and not
What
the
the
best.
fuck? Right. Yeah.
Um,
Agreed.
but I love so much of that part of the movie.
Yeah.
But I just wish that the stuff on like they even go out of their way to have like the random crazy Ralph character on the boat for whatever reason. And
I said
like
crazy
the
Ralph's
w
cousin. That's what I wrote in my notes.
yeah, or the weird ship captain having a conversation with his first mate where he's like, "What's your kid's age at?" Like they're trying to humanize these characters just to kill them within 5 seconds.
That whole like trying to give his son the boat thing. Like I was like, what are we doing? Like this is not like you're doing it. We don't care enough about these characters for us to have a scene like this at this point. If you don't have characters that are well written and well drawn out, and you have like these little moments they're trying to humanize them, just get rid of the humanizing part. Just give into it and let's get some killing going.
What how old is your kid? 18 months. Amazing age that. Don't be too hard on him. You're like, "I'm sorry, what is happening? Why is this conversation happening right now?"
No idea.
Only for
No
Jason to
idea.
turn around and slit his throat.
Right. Yep. It's just if he had a moment where like the father saved the son again or something, maybe it would have been worth it. But like we don't get that. We don't get that at all. It's just God. And then we I love the character. It's actually one of my favorite deaths in the thing. But what a random person we have in here is the guitar girl. Like
Yeah.
the guitar girl she's going on a cruise to New York City with her senior trip mates, and she brings a guitar and amp and her videographer friend, a guy, whatever, so they can shoot
Who's
videos all
obsessing
over like
over one of the girls apparently who is just gonna use him.
right, exactly. And it's like, really, what is this your way of okay? We need something specific. Okay, give her a guitar. That's her shtick. Yeah. With that
It's
being
so
said,
weird.
I did like the death by axe. I kind of did like that, a different kind of axe for
I like
Jason to
that.
use. That made me chuckle a little bit, like different kind of axe for Jason to go with.
I like that. Yeah, I think that's super fun and that's super clever. And she's a great character who is willfully underutilized because we get 2 scenes with her and then she's
Yeah.
dead.
I wish she stuck around for more than other and one of the other people did, to be honest with you.
And
So
that's kind of
wrong
the
choices.
entirety of this movie.
Yeah,
It's a
wrong
lot of
choices.
I just can't tell you how little any of the characters matter because they're all and I know this is gonna sound stupid because it's a Friday the 13th movie. Why am I saying these things? But
Right,
you said it earlier. If I don't care about these characters, what are we doing? It
right.
just makes them fodder. And I really like these movies. I really like Friday the 13th. I like when I like the characters, and I think slasher films can go a long way having likable characters that you actually give a shit about. Horror movies are at their best, and maybe I feel like I've been spoiled by so many great slasher movies over the last 20 years that when I look back at these ones and then I rewatch it and I start to see those cracks and I go, I'm not enjoying this as much as I used to because it just feels so been there, done that. And there's
100%.
nothing interesting happening.
I mean, we are people who love horror films. We love bad horror films. To be honest with you, like a lot of horror films are bad. We still love them to the point where we love these franchises. We're the ones who are going to rewatch these entire franchises. We've rewatched the entire Halloween franchise a number of times. We've rewatched a. Let me go a quick tangent here. Quick tangent, by the way. I saw something on social media that's going to blow your mind. Okay, and stay
Uh-huh.
with us, listeners. We'll come back to Friday the 13th in a minute. Somebody said something about Halloween Kills, and I was like, I read a social media post where you're following along, you're like, yes, hell yes, hell yes, hell yes, and they said something like, wait, what?
Yes.
That was this movie. That was this post saying Halloween Kills. If you say Halloween Kills is the worst film in the franchise and you haven't seen the entire franchise, Halloween Kills is a great slasher, yada yada yada. I can't understand how anybody could like Halloween Kills more than Halloween 5. Like Halloween Kills less than Halloween 5. I was like, yeah, hell yeah, Halloween 6. Hell yeah, Halloween Resurrection. Hell yeah, and H2O. Wait, what? You're lopping at H2O with Resurrect like that?
Yeah.
Okay, you lost me. You lost me. I saw your face in my mind. I saw your face going, trying to
Yeah.
come to the screen.
Yeah.
Uh, I just had to bring it up to you at this point. Speaking of Halloween,
You would too. You would. You're a
like,
bad person.
I was like, I was doing for you. I'm like, you son of a bitch. This son of a bitch. But either way, we
I
watched
know.
the Halloween movies for even the bad ones. We watched Friday the 13th for the bad ones. I'm going to watch Nightmare on Elm Street. I know there's some bad Nightmare on Elm Streets, but the more we get through it, I feel like I'm getting older. I'm like, I kind of just want to skip to the good ones at this point. And almost in a way, I feel like I'm going to be less likely to watch all the movies nowadays, and that sucks for me because there's something about loving to spend my time with Michael Myers, all of them.
Oh yeah.
Spending my time with Jason Voorhees, and yet this is making a case for me. Going, do I really want to watch this one again? Maybe I'll just watch the last 13 minutes of it.
Well, that's kind of the bummer, man, because the truth
Yeah,
is as much as I don't love like the Halloween movies at least have their own mythology that it's always sticking to. So I always find something to love about those movies, even if they're not the best. The
right.
world, the mythology, the things that you're doing, there's something tangible for me to grasp onto. Even if I think Curse of Michael Myers might be wildly uneven and strange and weird, at least the Thorn stuff is built into the movies from before. And like you still have Loomis and you still have a lot of things happening. Like that's great. I
Yeah,
love that.
great.
This movie doesn't have that. And I think that's actually maybe the biggest problem with Friday in general is
Yeah.
that the mythology starts to not matter because they never try to do anything more with it than boy drowns, kills teenagers.
Right.
Like they don't do enough with it outside of, put the stuff with mom in some of the early movies. At
Mm-hmm.
that point, it just becomes Jason comes back to life, Jason kills, Jason dies again. That is point blank the only things that they are attempting to do.
And there's something to be said about continuity. You lost Tommy Jarvis. You didn't have Tommy Jarvis come back. At least 4 through 6 had Tommy Jarvis, and you had somebody besides Jason you were kind of latching on to a little bit. I felt like we were kind of getting that with Tina. It was like a great debut of a new character. I feel like we can go somewhere. If we don't have Tommy Jarvis, we can go with Tina. Now it's just
Yeah.
like we have nothing. We just have Jason, and now you're taking him out of his home, which should be a good thing if that's what you're going for. But they don't replace. It just feels like it's cut off from the original lore instead. That's the unfortunate side effect of it. And we'll get into that more with Jason Goes to Hell, which basically tears up the lore and tries to start again to a
Well,
degree.
it's so crazy to me that Womp Stomp arguably made the coolest and most interesting sequel in this franchise because they're the ones that are the most directly tied
Yeah,
to the lore and the mythology. And I think that's why I get so interested in those. And I actually think that's part of why I like 2009 so much because I do think that it actually loves so much of the mythology to a certain point that it tries to combine a bunch of it and it becomes very interesting and it
yeah,
becomes very different. And I think that maybe it's a bigger symptom of us living in a world where cinematic universes and stuff have really taken off again. The funny thing is the original cinematic universe was a horror franchise, of course, which was the Universal Monsters. And
hmm
so to live in a world now though where people are really drawn to that world of storytelling and the way that they do things, or even not even just like cinematic universes, but bigger IPs that want to explore different facets of their IPs, like with Star Wars doing Obi-Wan and the
yeah,
Bad Batch and the Clone Wars and all of these things, you're inherently building more story and characters and worlds and lore. And it feels weird to watch a movie like this where there is a lot of lore if you want to mine it, but you just don't. And you
right,
just ignore it. And it's so weird because even the last movie had more ties to it in some capacity than this one does. And I
yeah.
don't understand that. Like, I don't understand why this feels so disconnected.
Yeah, no, you're spot on. I don't really either. It's a sad thing, and like I'm actually very interested to watch 2009 again. I remember I had a funny feeling. I really didn't like it the first time I saw it, and I watched it
I
again,
didn't either.
and it flipped for me. I really did like it for exactly the same reason, for exactly the same reasons you did. It did feel like it had a lot of love to give. It was just kind of like you had to get past a little bit of the Michael Bayisms of it. Really, that was the only problem. The problems with it, really. Um, but I happen to the lore is just completely cut off. Without the lore, it has no place. It feels like it's kind of treading water. And then it just becomes about the kills, which fine. That's what Friday the 13th is mainly known for. But even the kills seem like tired. They don't seem like they're very energetic, groundbreaking, exciting. We didn't get anything new, really. It was all kind of same old, same old. Um, I think the only kill that I could really honestly remember, besides the axe, which I like the axe, the guitar rather, that's kind of a fun thing. The only other kill I can remember as being like anything memorable was the boxer in New York getting his head popped off. That was fun and that was like memorable. But beyond that, it's like,
Yeah,
okay,
that's
so we're
pretty
what are we
much
doing?
it, to be
Yeah.
honest with you, which sucks
Well, so what are we
because,
doing?
yeah, I don't know. Like, even when they get to New York, you would anticipate that there's more to do and like clever ways to do it. Like, there's not. And that's so weird to me because there could have been plenty, even so you're telling me Jason gets to Manhattan. They have this great chase sequence that I love where they end up on the subway and they think they get away from Jason. And you end up in this moment where they're in the middle of Times Square and they think that they've gotten away from it. I love this moment. I love it every single time because they think that they have gotten away and Jason appears behind them in the middle of Times Square. But before, like, they realize they see him and they start to panic and they start to run and Jason stops because he's gonna go after him, but then he kinda gets overwhelmed, and it's my favorite moment in the movie when
Yeah, mine
Jason
too.
starts to slowly look around and he's kinda like he looks like a confused kid.
Yeah.
He doesn't
Is
know
what he
where he
is.
is. Yeah, and he's overwhelmed by the lights and the things and all the stuff that's happening because he's never left Crystal Lake.
Yep. I actually said it. It is honestly, it's the money shot. That's what I call it. I think it's like all the budget was spent on getting him in that spot in that time. So that's what it feels like. It's the best shot in the film by far. It encapsulates everything the film is supposed to trying to be. And unfortunately, that's all we get of it, though. It's so sad that way. Speaking of, before we get to there, before we move on to that, we're on the cruise already at this point. We're on the boat. How does Jason swim? Jason, the guy who drowned because he can't swim, suddenly somehow makes it to the cruise and swims his way onto the cruise and climbs the thing. How? What is that like? Like
I don't ask questions anymore.
again, you know, and maybe it's some people are gonna say it's a stupid question to ask. It's a horror film. It's stupid. You don't need to just. At the same time, like it goes against the primary, like one of the primary characteristics about the character is he can't swim, and yet somehow he makes his way to the boat. Tired.
It's
Tired.
just a weird choice.
And then beyond
but
that, Rob Hedden. How do we get from Crystal Lake
to New
a
York.
lake? Look up the word lake, and he gets a cruise ship in a lake to go to New York.
Yeah.
And they even admit
Yeah.
that. Like we watch the Crystal Lake Memories, they talk about that. And the response, that was the response. They knew it was dumb. They knew it was bad. They knew it made no sense. And the response was, how are we going to make this work? We'll ignore it. And it's like, what are we doing? That is fundamental storytelling. Again, you can get away with so much in a horror film. If you give us any kind of excuse, we're literally going to buy it because we're like, okay, we don't need Shakespeare. We don't need like Oscar-winning story level stuff. But don't insult us at this either. Don't insult the audience at the same time. It's like so ridiculously stupid. And that's why I'm not a fan of Hedden. And I'm like, you know what? This guy, it's just, you're giving up. You're giving up and half-assing it. I know part of it might be that his morale was just being beaten down at this point.
And no, and so you're not wrong, right? Because this is where I was getting at with the scene in Times Square is so then Jason is in Times Square, he's overwhelmed, and then he finally sees them again, and he's like, I'm gonna go get them. And there's that group of gang members hanging out, the punks.
Yeah.
And instead of us getting like a sequence where he murders these people in the middle of New York, which would have been amazing in the middle of Times Square, he lifts his masks up, scares them away, and that's it. What?
After he destroys their boombox on the way through, destroys their boombox, and they try to beat him up.
I don't understand.
I don't either. Kill them. That's what you do, Jason. You kill them. Use that as a way to let the kids get away. And then they run to the diner. And the diners are like, they're like, oh, this is New York. There's a killer jumping around. It just got tired.
And I hate saying it that way because the truth is that everything about the third act is really fun for the most part.
Yeah.
I mean, the boxing on top of the building is so absurd, and yet I don't care. It's funny. That to me is maybe the highlight of the movie, like you brought up, because there's something about a dude who's a boxer, and then he just knows that there's nothing he can do, and he gets tired. Yeah. And Jason goes, "Fuck you," and boxes his head off.
Right, my turn. Boop. That's the kind of insanity you can go with. Yeah, like, is it silly? Is it stupid? That's something about Oscar-winning stories. We don't need Oscar-winning stories, but give us at least something that's in the realm of its own universe, and that's in that realm of its own universe. Jason's done something like that before, and in this case, he does something a little bit new, but it's not like so far out of the realm of anything he's done before that doesn't make sense. I gotta say, even though we get to New York, it still takes time to get to New York. We spend a lot of time on the dock to begin with. And it's like, you're really just starting to tease us now at this point. You're really just not going to do it, are you?
I just genuinely wish that the movie had more going for it. Like, because ultimately, this is also one of the longer movies in the franchise. It's 100 minutes. It feels long.
It does.
It feels long. It feels drawn out. It feels like it's never going to get to the thing that it wants to get to, and it finally does, and then it starts to be fun, and then it's not. I don't know. It's just very confusing. This is a movie so at war with itself.
Yeah, even like we kind of skipped a lot of stuff that actually happened on the cruise. Started seeing
because there's not a lot to really say.
Yeah, and you're not wrong. It's like the whole cat and mouse thing. They have like the emergency systems. There's like fires going on. Everybody like running around the whole thing. But at the same time, like nothing. Like We have the dance floor death, which is fine. We have the sauna death where he pushes the vine, but like it's all kind of like just immemorable stuff that doesn't really do much with it. Um, I guess I like the concept of Rennie having the fear of water, kind of like
Yeah.
what Jason had in a way. It kind of like actually makes a kind of nice connection there, but they just don't really do enough with it to make it matter. I mean, yes, they have the prank where they push her into the water, which, by the way, what kind of fucking prank is that? My God, you prank, you're going to push the kid who's afraid of water into the ocean or into the, like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, ah. Kelly Who is in it, by the way. We forgot to mention that. Kelly
Yeah,
Who,
from,
she's
the Scorpion King in X2.
X2, right? She makes her like one of her first appearances here. She goes away very much non-memorable. She's forgettable, unfortunately, as well. Um, I don't know. I don't know. It just the whole bit of it is crap. Crap. It's crap. I'm just tired.
I I hate saying it that way, but it's true, and that leads to my frustrations with the end of the movie too,
Yeah.
because the movie also just clearly doesn't know what it's trying to do,
He
and
has
the
no idea
ending
how to
is
end it.
so lame.
Has no idea how to end it. And it chooses like the worst possible way to end it than I can think of. I I don't know how this ever made it past like a draft, completely honestly. And we've had some dumb moments in this series, in this franchise. But you have like they're in the underground, they're in like the sewers. They encounter a sewer worker who warns them that the sewers will be flooded with toxic waste at midnight. Wait, what? So all
Uh-huh.
the time in New York City, they're fluing out toxic waste to the sewers at night? What? What?
Yep.
Like, I don't even understand how that's even like passably believable. I, I, mm.
Yeah, I don't know, man. It just
And that's
I
the best part about
genuinely
the 5 minutes, last five. That's the best part about the last 5 minutes because then afterwards we get everything else that happened. It's like, oh,
I hate this. I hate it so much because we are generally such positive guys, and I
yes,
never like ripping on a movie. I feel like we're punching down at this point, but the problem
yeah.
is I
We want to
can't.
love it. We want to love
Yeah,
it.
and I have to be honest, and
Yeah,
I'd rather be completely brutally honest about it,
yeah,
which sucks because god damn, dude, like this franchise means the world to me, and I
yeah.
hate how much I dislike this one. You know what
Yeah,
I
same.
mean?
I do. I
Like,
know.
it's really, really frustrating.
Uh, um, I will say, let's give one ray of light before we tackle the ending there. Kane Hodder does a great job as always. His Jason is very good with what he has to work with the direction he's given, with the things he has to do. But goddamn, Jason chasing them up the ladder, the wastewater comes. Jason gets scared and hears himself as a boy. The wastewater takes him and his face melts away. When the water recedes, it is done. We are somehow left with baby Jason.
Yeah. Make it make sense, because I
Well,
don't understand it.
I I don't know. I have no way of even. I don't know. I don't know. Like they don't even try to explain anything. It just kind of like happens, and it's like, wait. So the toxic water makes him a baby.
Yeah.
Uh, this
I
is
wish that I wish that I understood, man.
yeah.
I really do. But they don't give me a lot to work with. They don't give a lot for any of us to work with,
No,
frankly.
no. And then, quite frankly, I'm glad they just pretty much ignore it. For Jason Goes to Hell, they just basically don't even bother trying to explain it. That's how bad it is. Like they just
I I just genuinely don't understand why they even make the swing with it that they do. I
no.
just
This is
it
swing for swing's sake,
yeah.
and that's never a good thing. At least have an idea in mind when you take a swing. And I think Nine has some ideas that they want to do, even if they are not very good. But at least makes sense with what they're trying to do. This just kind of like is like this basically feels like the writer said, "Ah, we had Jason kill some people. They don't really care how it ends. They don't really care. We'll just make this. Yeah, sure." He becomes a kid again. What? Yeah. All right. Sure. At least they get reunited with the dog all of a sudden. That's the most believable thing at the end. After all this, they're reunited with the dog in Times Square.
Yeah, of all things. I genuinely wish that I wasn't feeling so frustrated about this one, and I
Yeah,
wish that I loved it. I
I
wish
do.
that I still like, when I was a kid, I used to think this one was really fun. But I just think, again, it's years of watching the other versions of these movies that I like more and revisiting those ones more, and better slasher movies over the last few years that have just changed my outlook a little bit on this one, as weird as that sounds.
We were much more forgiving back in the day. I think that's part of it. But I'm not as forgiving as I used to be to a degree. Um, some people say I'm still very forgiving. As horror fans, we're very forgiving in general, but even we have our limits, and this just isn't it isn't good. Like the only
No.
reason I ever watch this one again is only because it's part of a franchise.
Yeah.
Like I watch it if I the only
I
reason I
don't go
will
out of
watch
this
it.
way for it, you know?
No, I never choose to. If I just watch a movie, I'm not sitting down and watching Friday the 13th Part 8. If I'm watching the Friday the 13th franchise because I'm celebrating the franchise I love, then I might put it on. But even now, I'm kind of like, you know what? I don't even know if I have time for it. I think I might just skip from 7 to Jason X, to be honest with you. But that might maybe that's what we'll do at the end of the run here at the end of the season. We'll go. What's your Friday the 13th watch order? As far as things go. Um, Here we are, an hour and 16 minutes into this recording. At least 20 minutes were about Godzilla and everything else. You could really tell our podcast when you look at the podcast length how much we like
Yeah.
a movie or how much we don't like a movie. Um, because it feels like we don't. Because when we don't like a movie, a lot of times we just don't have a lot to talk about because there's only so many times you can say, "Yeah, it's tired. Yeah, it sucked. Yeah, it's bad." I mean, I could point out every little thing I didn't like, but just it becomes tired, old, and bad.
Right, and I think that's why, even with me, like, I don't even wanna sit here and keep talking about it too much, because I feel like we become overly negative, which is not who we are. You
Yeah,
know what I'm saying?
yeah, I really feel bad about that because, quite frankly, I know there are people out there who might love this film. This might be their favorite Friday the 13th film, and I feel bad shitting on it. I don't
I
want
do
that.
too.
I don't want you to come out like if you love this film, that's
Love
awesome.
it.
I'm happy for you. Love it,
Embrace that.
embrace it, and watch it nonstop. Maybe your Friday the 13th marathon is watching Friday the 13th Part 8 8 times in a row, and more power to you. It's just it doesn't work for me, unfortunately. Even as a big fan of the franchise, so I can't. I got to be honest and truthful. So
Yeah.
should we?
There's nothing else to say about it, man. This is not a very good movie, and it really breaks my heart because I've never really had this adverse of a reaction to it.
Yeah,
I always enjoyed it more than I did until now, but I just really started to see
the cracks.
so much of the cracks and so much of the, just, I don't know. It breaks my heart. I wanted to love this, but this is just, it's not good. It's just not good.
No, is it time to rank it?
It's low.
It's
I'm
low.
just
I'll
gonna
give
say
you
it. I
our
know we turned it
listing.
up to 11 here.
I'll give you turn up to
Um,
11. I'll give you the listing of the movies before Friday the 13th because it
and
has been a while. So we took a couple weeks off. So let's just get it. Let's kind of refresh our memories here. I gave the original Friday the 13th a 6 out of 11. You gave it a 6.5. I gave part 2 a 7. You gave it an 8.5. I gave part 3 a 7. You also gave it a 7. Part 4, I gave it a 9.5. You gave it part 4 a 10. I gave part 5 a 5.5. Well, it seems actually almost a little low in retrospect, but you gave it a 6. Jason Lives, we both gave perfect 11s out of 11. New Blood, I gave a 10.5. You gave it a 9.5. So here we are with part 8. Jason Takes Manhattan. Jason Takes a Cruise. Out of 11, what can you possibly give us at this point?
I'm gonna give it a 4.
4?
Yeah, it's saved by a lot of fun things in the third act that I wish that I wanted to talk about more, but I'm more just feeling dejected at this point of my feelings on it. Um, but boy, I don't know. Bleh.
Yeah, I can't disagree. I think I have to give it a 3. I think I have to give it a 3.
All right, there it is.
I'll give it a 3 for like the 3 minutes that I enjoyed pretty much.
Yeah.
Maybe a little more than that, but you know what I'm saying there at this point. So unfortunately, that's just the way it goes. Let's rank our Jasons now. I'm going to see how this ranks the Jason of it, because Kane Hodder I do think was good. And Ken Kirzinger had a couple of spots as Jason as well in this one, but it's mostly still Kane Hodder. As we look at those previous rankings, we both said part 7 was our favorite. I put part 6, you put part 4. I put part 3, you put part 6. I put part 4, you put part 3. And we both put part 2 and then part 1, as Spider Monkey as it is.
Mhm.
I will go first. I think for this one, I'm going to put this one at 3rd as far as Jasons go. And that's that's the caveat. I'm not including ending Jason or baby Jason flashback, merely the killing machine Jason. Because I have
Yeah.
to include the other stuff, I'd have to push it down, but I don't think that's fair. Kane Hodder's Jason and Kurzinger's Jason, I'll put it 3rd and down the list.
Yeah, I'll probably do the same, to be honest, because it's still hotter.
Yeah.
That's the one thing that this movie really has going for it. We really didn't talk about it. Hotter is fantastic.
Yeah.
Again, I think the best moment in the entire movie, it comes down to him and his performance when Jason's in Times Square.
Yeah. Same.
I just think it's a great character moment. It's one of the best moments in the entire franchise. That's the funny thing, is that this movie is such a fucking mess, and yet this stands out as an all-time moment for me in the series because Hodder's performance as Jason is so good.
So good.
And I think that's
So
a
good.
great thing.
Yeah. 100% a great thing. So, alrighty, that'll do it then for us for this week's episode. We are back next week, doing 2 in a row. Next week, we are talking about Jason Goes to Hell, the final Friday. I know we both aren't the hugest fans of this one either, but I am intrigued on watching it. I do feel like this is I don't know if it's a better film, but it's a better watch because it does have a lot of interesting attempts to do something. It's not tired. It's sure not tired. It might not work very well, but it's not tired. Um, I'm always very interested to rewatch this one for some reason. So, what are your thoughts going in?
It's been a little bit, and I'm not that thrilled to revisit it, to be honest. This is a weird movie. Um,
Yeah, it is.
I over the years I've come to appreciate aspects of it, but I get very frustrated when filmmakers come into a franchise and they think that they're better than the franchise and bigger than the franchise, and I
Mm.
get real Halloween 5 vibes when I watch it.
Yeah,
So
100%.
there's a part of me that is not that thrilled to come back to it, but I'm also kind of excited because it's just so weird and bonkers and strange that it'll be fun to watch
Yeah,
in some capacity.
that's the main thing right there. We will have to endure one more week, but then we get to Jason X after that, which is definitely a fun time watch for us. We know that's going to be a fun, long podcast for that one. We're getting closer and closer to the end of the series, closer and closer. We do got Jason X, then Freddy vs. Jason, and the 2009, and then the 2 Wumpstomp films. So we're going
Yep.
to be wrapping up our Friday the 13th soon after that. Then we'll get into John Wick for Kelly, our patron. Speaking of Patreon, if you want to help us out here on PLD Projects, patreon.com/PLD Projects. We have a great crew there. You can join the likes of Austin Goodell, Jeremiah Morris, Brandon Buckingham, Jeff Alterman. Really help keep the lights on. I appreciate you guys so much. If you can't do that, I get it. Hit the like, hit the subscribe. That helps the channel out. We're getting closer. I think we're at like 470 subscribers now. Slow march to 500. The next stop 1,000. Slowly, but surely, as the folks like to say. PJ, where can the folks find you?
You guys can find me on most of the social networks at PJ Campbell, and you can find me here hanging out with you, usually much more upbeat and enjoying ourselves
Yes. Yes.
comparative to this.
Yes. Same at Paul_Denuzio on the old Twitter and PLD Projects, or Paul Denuzio on Blue Sky and Threads. Just reverse that. But also all over the place on Two Mediocre White Dudes on film on PLD projects rather, with Two Mediocre White Dudes on film, with the Big Blue Box, which have a more special coming out because the Christmas special for Doctor Who is on the 25th. So sometime within that next week, we'll get another episode of the Big Blue Box out. We got also Holy Snokes, our Star Wars podcast, review our podcast on V, Crown Jewels, my podcast on Queen. A lot of good stuff happening. So stay tuned. Stay tuned for more. And we will see you next time. Until then, of course, stay mediocre. Never underestimate the power of mediocrity. Rob Hedden.
Sorry we were mean.
We love you guys. Hopefully you don't hate us too much if this is your favorite film, if it's your favorite Friday. We appreciate you guys still for hanging out with us. All right, take care.